Hello, everyone. How are y'all? Good. Last day, best day. Am I right? It's been a week full of trainings and presentations and announcements, and it's been so much fun for me. And so I'm excited to be here and chat with y'all about Databricks SQL. When I was called on to do this speaking opportunity, I was like, me? Really? And they were like, yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I'm here. So a little bit about me. I'm Pearl. I am a senior solutions engineer here at Databricks. I actually started pretty recently. I started in February of this year. And prior to that, I worked in consulting. I worked for Accenture in the data science alignment, which was awesome. And before that, I actually was a high school math teacher. Yes, I had to deal with hormonal high schoolers. Couldn't do it anymore. But shout out to the teachers. Um, so today's agenda is as follows. I'm gonna obviously give a brief intro into Databricks SQL, some of the key capabilities, and then of course we'll jump into the hands-on demo. There will be a break just because I don't know if you know, but this session is quite long. So I want to give you an opportunity to either get some water, use the restroom, make phone calls, whatever that you need to do. Then we'll return back to the demo, and then we will have a bit of time for Q&As. Sounds good? I do want to say what this session is and what it isn't. So first and foremost, are there any data analysts in the house? Raise your hand. Okay, we got quite a few. This session is for you, but it's also for SQL users, BI users, any administrators, and visualization analysts. And so my goal for y'all is to leave here feeling confident enough to get started on Databricks SQL on your own. So I will say that this session, it's not really a session about implementation details or like best practices when building your Lakehouse or your cloud data warehouse. But if you are interested in that, we do have our Databricks Academy, or you can chat with any of your Databricks representatives or any of those individuals. So let's get started. So of course, you know, Databricks is the data and AI company. We are the inventors of the data lakehouse. And we've been able to work with over 6,000 customers worldwide. We work with Fortune 500 companies. We work with unicorns, startups, you name it, honestly. And it's been really great being a part of that. So our culture and innovation and dedication to open source projects can be expressed through our ML Flow, Apache Spark, and of course, Delta Lake. And in general, we are growing as a company quite a bit. I don't know what number employee I am, but I know it's in the 3,000s, of course. But this year, we're looking to hire on 2,500 more employees, which I think is amazing. So if you or you know anyone interested in joining Databricks or becoming a Brickster, let me know. Chat with me after. So the Databricks platform, it's simple, open, and multi-cloud. I'm sure you've heard this a lot. But it's simple because it stores all your data, structured or unstructured, all in one place. So your data warehousing, your data engineering, data streaming, data analytics, all the ML capabilities can be done all under one roof. It's open because, well, through Delta Lake, our open format storage layer, it provides reliability and world record setting performance. So all data in your Delta Lake is built on Apache Parquet format to allow it to be read by any compatible reader. And of course, it's multi-cloud because you get the same consistent Databricks UI across the different clouds, such as AWS, Azure, and GCP. I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about Unity Catalog this week and in general, and Unity Catalog allows you to centrally manage and audit shared data across your organization so you can confidently share data assets with suppliers and partners while um, meeting security and compliance needs. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. You've probably been seeing this QR code. And I purposely put that there because I know throughout these sessions, there can be quite a bit of questions. So if you have any questions throughout while I'm talking, please feel free to scan the QR code and it'll take you to a place where you can type one out. And that will allow us to keep track of any questions and get them answered at the end. So Databricks SQL, it's designed to provide you with 4 key benefits. First, serverless compute. I'm sure you've heard of that this week as well with serverless SQL. You get fast and reliable performance for all query types and workloads, and you get the lowest price for this performance. Another key benefit is that analysts, they can bring their own or their favorite tools. There's no need to relearn anything. So you can transform, ingest, and query with any of your favorite tools, such as Fivetran, DBT, Power BI, all in one space. Also, another great benefit is that analysts can analyze and discover key insights utilizing our SQL query editor. So the familiarity and collaborative nature of Databricks SQL allows teams to query the latest data, create dashboards, visualizations, and share them across their organization. Lastly, Databricks SQL, it provides you with a simple administration and governance. So you can centrally store and govern all your data in one place, break down silos, and establish one single copy of your data. So now we're going to talk about some key capabilities about Databricks SQL. And so Databricks SQL, it removes the need to manage, configure, or scale your cloud infrastructure. So this frees up your data team to do the things that they know and they love. Databricks SQL Warehouses, they'll automatically scale to provide you with unlimited concurrency without disruption. And they're available serverless, as we've learned this week. So this provides instant start time and greater availability. This is powered through Photon, which is our query engine on Databricks, and it provides up to 8 times better price and performance compared to other cloud data warehouses. So queries executed on Photon, it's on a native vectorized engine that speeds up query execution, and it's part of a high-performance runtime that runs your existing SQL and DataFrame API calls faster and reduces your total cost per workload. And by default, on Databricks SQL, this feature is turned on. So we noticed that highly concurrent analytic workloads tend to be executed over smaller data sets. So we decided to make this common use case faster and optimize concurrency. To track our progress, we use the TPC DS benchmark with a much smaller scale factor of about 10 gigabytes and 32 concurrent streams to simulate multiple users. We looked at how we were doing, identified and removed any bottlenecks, and went back and repeated this process multiple times. And hundreds of optimizations later, we improved concurrency by three times. So right now, Databricks SQL outperforms some of the best cloud data warehouses for both large queries and small queries with multiple users. So Databricks SQL, it works with your data no matter where it is. We have worked closely with a large number of software vendors just to make sure that you can easily use your tools of choice on Databricks. We made it easy to connect, easy to ingest, easy to transform, easy to authenticate through single sign-on just by one click. Databricks SQL works seamlessly with popular BI tools like Tableau, Power BI, Looker, and so on. So now analysts can analyze the freshest data in place using familiar visualizations and dashboards and enable the business with new insights. And we'll see this in the demo for sure. So in addition to supporting your existing BI tools, we are also focused on providing a first-class SQL development experience. We continuously talk with analysts that use various SQL editors each day, such as SQL Workbench, and we work with them to provide the dream set of capabilities for SQL development. So Databricks SQL, it offers a full-featured SQL editor that allows analysts to write queries in a familiar syntax and easily explore schemas. Regularly used SQL code can be saved as snippets for quick reuse, and query results can be cached to keep runtimes short. Additionally, query updates can be scheduled to automatically refresh, as well as to issue alerts when meaningful changes occur in the data. Databricks SQL also allows analysts to make sense of data through visualizations, drag and drop dashboards, and so on. Once built, these dashboards can actually be shared within the organization and also outside of the organization through our web browser. So this demo, it's going to be chunked into 8 different sections, just so that we can get a piece of each of what Databricks SQL does. And so let me go ahead and get that set up. So first and foremost, before I log in, I just want you to know that for this demo, I'm logging in as an admin. But of course, in your organization or your company, in a production or dev environment, an administrator would configure the appropriate permissions or privileges for you to see what I see. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here. And we're going to get introduced to the Databricks UI workspace. If it loads. Okay. So this is the landing page once you log into Databricks SQL. As you can see at the very top, you have the immediate ability to go ahead and create a query, which we will not do now, we will do in a later section. You can also visualize some of our sample dashboards, which we will do in a moment. So you can get a feel of the rich illustrations that Databricks SQL can provide. You also have the opportunity to view some sample data. This is where your data will be housed normally. And then at the very top here, we have Partner Connect. And these are the tools I was telling you about for data ingestion, machine learning, transformation, and things of that nature. In the middle of the page here, you get access to recents. So any of the dashboards or queries that you've recently accessed can be found here for quick reference. If you do favorite any, I personally have not, they would sit here to the right. I personally love using the landing page just because sometimes any quick reference to any documents or guides, and they can be found here, right on the landing page. So if you are a user or a data consumer within your organization, you can immediately find access to documentation on how to get started as a user on Databricks SQL. And you can do the same as an admin. Takes you straight to our page. There's also release notes here, just because Databricks SQL, we are always coming with great and new things. We have a lot planned, and so you want to be aware of that. So we do have our release notes here for Databricks SQL itself, but we also do have them for the actual Databricks platform as well, for you to keep up to date. And lastly, on the bottom right here, we do have our blog posts. I'm sure many of y'all have seen it on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. And this is just great for seeing what other companies are doing, what are their use cases, and just interesting updates in regards to Databricks SQL and more. On the far left-hand side here, we have our navigation pane. This is actually collapsible, but I'm going to keep it open for the duration of this demo. But this is where all the magic happens. I do want to bring up one point. We are currently in the Databricks SQL persona, but we do have three. We have the machine learning persona, we have the data science and engineering persona, and if you click into each of them, you'll see that the one tab that remains consistent is the data tab. And that's the part of Databricks SQL that unifies the platform. So for now, I have this pinned, the SQL, because we're going to stay in here. There's also help, of course, if you need it, and settings regarding your account. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and import a sample dashboard for this demo. And I did that just by clicking the top where it said samples and visit gallery. So we have two options here. We have NYC taxi trip analysis and retail revenue and supply chain. I'm personally going to go ahead and import the retail revenue and supply chain. And please know that this is just a sample dashboard. It provides analysis and insight into retail and supply chain performance for a fictional enterprise. So once I click import, you are able to see just a few capabilities of the Databricks SQL and their visualizations. We have some tiles here that quickly show some key information regarding unique customers and unique suppliers. Here is a bar chart that's stacked and shows national revenue trends over the years. Another chart here, a table that shows most valuable customers, and a cool heat map that's actually a map and a line graph. This is just an introduction. We will dive a bit deeper into this a bit later. So now we're going to jump into Sql Warehouses. I'm sure you know that they were once called Sql endpoints. They have recently been changed to Sql Warehouses because the name better applies with what Sql Warehouse actually does, which is a computational resource. So if you wanted to find your Sql warehouses, obviously it'd be right here. And once you click it, you are shown a series of the different warehouses that are created. I'm actually going to stop these two. And these are created by anyone in the org. You can see them immediately if you are an admin. So we have our classic warehouses, we have our serverless, and the one that I'm going to pay attention to is the serverless starter warehouse. This is the one I'm going to use for this demo. And I'm going to go ahead and click into it, and then I'm going to go ahead and edit it. So when you edit a SQL warehouse, the first thing you want to do is give it a name. Again, mine is serverless starter warehouse. You want to pay attention to the cluster size. We've made it easy for you to select your cluster size by just doing t-shirt sizing, extra small, small. And by default on Databricks SQL, it's normally extra large. But in this demo, I'm going to stay with small to keep our costs down. But if you wanted to reduce the latency of queries, you can increase the size. Larger size clusters, they have a larger coordinator, and it doubles the number of cluster workers. Another key feature when setting up your SQL warehouse is auto stop. I don't know about y'all, but it's a Friday, you're done work, and you leave and you don't have auto stop on, and your warehouse continues to run, and on Monday morning, your boss hits you up and is like, hey, what's going on? Why are you running up the bill? You don't want to have that. So make sure you turn on auto stop. You can set it up to however minutes that you'd like. By default, I believe it's 120, but you can change it for however frequent that you need it. Scaling, so this scaling piece, it's here for horizontal scaling. Typically, a cluster would be able to handle 10 concurrent queries before doing any sort of queuing. If you have more than 10 concurrent queries, you could have it auto scale up and down to handle concurrency horizontally. And I'm going to keep this the default here, so I'm not going to change it. Tags are super important. It helps with costs and help you manage resources across your organization. You can specify the tags as key value pairs for your warehouse, and then Databricks will apply these tags to cloud resources. Of course, serverless, that's turned on because this is a serverless SQL warehouse. And as you know, this allows you to run your SQL and BI workloads on a fully managed secure compute environment that starts up and scales up and down super, super fast. And you'll see that in a moment. Next, we have Unity Catalog. Again, this is enabled here, and this allows you to administer data access policies that apply across all workspaces, personas, and admins can actually grant permissions at the level of catalogs, databases, tables, columns, views. And this automatically captures user-level audit logs that record access to your data. Channel is a really cool and interesting feature that was recently added. So right now we're on current, and current SQL Warehouse, it just basically says that we are in our regular version of Databricks SQL, but if you wanted to click preview, it will actually allow you to see some cool features that we are working on before they become a Databricks standard. And it doesn't mess with your production or anything or any of your data. So that's a really cool feature to turn on if you want to check out what we're doing and what features we potentially plan to add. I'm going to stick with current for now. So once I press save, you can see that it still stopped. So I wanted to show you just how quickly it starts up. So once I press start, I'm going to run the SQL Warehouse. And as you can see, it's already running. If it does take on a classic warehouse, you'll find that it takes a couple of minutes sometimes. And so that's why we're sticking to serverless here for this demo. As you can see, this is the overview of what I just did when I edited the actual SQL warehouse. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is permissions. So within Databricks, there's an ability to add permissions for pretty much everything, which I think is really, really important. I remember having a customer that was super frustrated because he felt like everyone and anyone in his company was creating warehouses and creating queries and just could not find anything because they all had access to basically do that. And so you want to be able to, I want to share this with you so that then you know that you can add permissions. You can add permissions for groups or people. As you can see, the groups here, for example, are analysts, and these are already set up in the admin console. The users are added here, so they will all have access by either using this particular warehouse or being able to manage it. Of course, if they can just use it, they can just select it and use it for their own needs. But if they manage it, then they can get in here and basically edit it. And sometimes you may not want that. So you have that option here. And then you can do similar for just individual users if necessary. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the connection details. And so with connection details, this is where you can connect to your tools of choice. You can see your host name, port, path, your JDBC URL. And you can see these two are here, Tableau and Power BI, because that's mostly what people use when they connect. But there are more BI tools, and if you click that button, it just takes you to this page, which is, I mean, it's great. I mean, you show me all the different partners we have. But I think the most important part is actually how to connect to this. And so I'm gonna do Tableau. And so let me pull it up here in the corner just to show you how you can connect your Databricks to your BI tools. So, okay. Okay, so as you can see, once I'm in Tableau, I can go ahead and connect to Databricks here. As you can see, I've already put my server name, my path, and then I needed a personal access token. And I don't know if you saw, but, oops, wrong one. I don't know if you saw here, there was a place, bottom right here, to create a personal access token to connect. So if you just click that, you can generate a new token, which I will do here. I'm just gonna comment it as Tableau. You can set the lifetime for however that you'd like. I'm just gonna keep it at 90, and then you can generate it. Make sure you copy it, because as you can see, it says that you won't be able to see it again. So once I click OK, I have it copied. You're just gonna paste it and sign in. So now we are connected. These are the catalogs that are present in the Databricks platform. I just haven't got to them yet, but you'll see them in a moment. We have our two catalogs, the Hive Metastore and samples. And then you can select the database. However, you need to know the database. I believe mine is sample, or no, it's not that. It's samples for the catalog, and it's TPCH for the database. And then the table name that we'll deal with in Databricks will be orders. And as you can see, I have my table straight from Databricks right on Tableau, and I can go ahead and run any insights and analysis here if I so choose. But today's demo, we're focusing more on Databricks SQL, so I'm going to show you how you can do the same kind of thing, but in Databricks SQL. Okay. So if I head back to my serverless SQL warehouse, I'm going to go ahead and click monitoring. I'm not going to spend too much time here because we do have a section dedicated to query performance and SQL warehouse analysis. But please note that there is a way to monitor your SQL warehouse, how many queries, how many clusters are running at any given time. So up until this point in this section, you've seen and understood how SQL warehouses work. The warehouse that we're working with in this section, as we talked about, was serverless. And so this type of warehouse is a compute resource that is managed in the Databricks cloud. So as an administrator or data consumer, all the complexity of managing the underlying compute cluster is abstracted away from the user. And so serverless SQL warehouses, they simplify SQL warehouse management and accelerate launch times. Okay. So now we're going to jump into the next section. And this section is going to be us exploring the most important part, the data tab. We're going to explore databases, tables, and just data access controls here. And we will be able to learn how to grant and revoke permissions for different users. So once I click the data tab, as you can see, the first thing that pops up are my catalogs. Here in this demo, I only have 2, but I'm going to focus on the samples. Within the samples catalog, there are the databases that are housed right underneath. And I'm going to select the TPCH database. And that's simply because this is the database that applies to the dashboard that I showed you in the beginning, the retail revenue and supply chain information. So this is what correlates to that. Taking some time. Okay, so now that it's loaded, you can now see the different tables that we have within this particular database. Customer, line item, nation, but I'm going to pay attention to the orders table. And once you click the orders table, you can immediately see that this is actually a Delta Lake table. And sorry, it's a Delta Lake table, which means that it's built on an open source storage format layer that allows ACID transactions and metadata handling and unified streaming and batch data processing on top of existing data lakes. So underneath the table, sometimes you'd like to kind of explain what the table is about. I don't know about you, but I've seen many tables where I have no idea why this table even exists, and it'd be great if someone left a comment. And so you can do that within this table. For any users that might come across this table, they can understand a little bit about it. If they so wish, you could also change the owner. Right now, I am unable to because, it's owned by Databricks Incorporated, and this is a demo, but you can change the owner at any time. And I think this is important too, because again, if you don't understand what you're reading, you could always reach out to the individual within your organization for an explanation. The best part for me also when I select the table is this schema. I don't need to run any code. I immediately see columns, the type of column, and I can also leave comments in regard to what the column means. So some of these columns, if you click the sample data, you'll see a preliminary view. And just while this is loading, I want to bring attention to the top right here. You always want to make sure that you are connected to your correct warehouse. And so I can see here that I'm connected to my serverless starter warehouse, which is great. Okay, so the sample data loaded here. As you can see, the different columns, we're quickly introduced to a few records, just so we can get a feel of what the data looks like and if there is any complex columns like nested columns and things of that nature. The details tab just shows you the catalog, location, the type of table, and just table properties. And for some reason, in this demo, it doesn't let me show permissions. I think it's just because it's sample data. But if I was to show you on a table that I can access here, I can show you what the permissions are, which is an ability to grant and revoke access, again, to users or groups. I can quickly show you that. So as you can see in the permissions, when you have a table, you can go ahead and grant or revoke. You can grant to multiple users or groups yet again, and you can give them privileges such as all, select, you can give them modifying privileges and reading of metadata. And then you can see kind of the privileges that they've been given and the object they've been given privileges for. I'm gonna head back to my orders table. The last piece is history. And as you can see again, because it's sample data, it's not going to let me see any history. But if I show you in the other table again, you'll see that history will show you the versioning of the table. You can see who accessed it, what exactly they did, what their if it's a notebook or a job, and you can see that even within Databricks SQL. What table? I'll just choose this one. Okay. So as you can see, the version is 0. You can see the user that did it, the operation they did, which was write, different operation parameters, and you can see that all in the history of the table. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue on with the demo. We have reached section 5, so we're about halfway there. And in section 5, we are going to create and execute queries and visualizations. So to do that, we're going to head over to this navigation pane, and we're going to click, obviously, queries. And once you click queries, you're able to see the name of the query, who created it, what time they created it, when it was last executed, and a refresh schedule if the query has one. If you do have admin privileges, you are able to see all of these. If you're just a user with certain permissions or privileges, you may not be able to see all, only the ones that you have control or access to. Right now, there are about 100 or so or more queries, and sometimes it may be hard to look through and you can't remember the name or you can't remember what page, so you can definitely search it up right here. Tabbed editor is actually a key feature. There's nothing like having all your queries up and switching through a bunch of different browsers. It's no fun. And so tabbed editor actually allows you to flip through queries directly on the Databricks UI. And I will show you that in a moment. Right now, I'm on all queries, so I can see all of them, but I can also see my own queries that I've created. I can see any of my favorites again, any that I've deleted. And admin view, I believe, allows you to see not just all queries, but also any that have been deleted as well. And just a bit more detail about execution and things of that nature. Tags also are great when you're trying to find a series of queries under a certain category. You can categorize them using tags. So if I click sample here, you can see these are all the these are all the queries underneath the sample tag in regards to our sample demo and data. So instead of creating a query, I'm actually just going to select one that has already been configured. So I'm going to select national revenue trends. This one. And the first thing is on the left-hand side, you can see the Schema Browser. However, this Schema Browser is not correct. This is just by default. It comes to this one. But the one we're actually looking for is the catalog for samples. And it's going to be TPCH for our database. And then we can see our tables here that we saw earlier earlier in this demo. So you want to be able to see the different schemas for each column, just for quick reference when writing your SQL commands. So in this area here, you can see that, well, actually, before I continue, you want to, again, make sure that you are connected to your serverless your warehouse. And I am, and it's running, and I'm fine. So this can go ahead and run. This particular query actually is going to show me, well, it already shows me down here the results. It's going to show me year, the nation, and revenue associated with each nation. Within the actual query, you can actually add new parameters if you wanted to. Add your keyword, the title, and then you can add the type. It can be text, number, drop down. I like format query because if you highlight your entire query and you click format query, which I'm not going to do, it will format your query appropriately. And I think this is great because sometimes when you're writing your code, you're like, okay, why is it not working? Is the space messed up? You can have maybe more spaces than you need or whatever. Clicking that button will allow you to avoid that issue. We also have live autocomplete. This is a great feature because it allows you to, I'll just show you. So if I was to just write even just a little bit of my command, it now shows me the different options that I have. Uh-oh, it's buffering, sorry. And I can click from any of these databases and then continue writing my code. So it just makes writing queries a bit faster. And then, of course, there has to be some sort of keyboard commands and shortcuts that you can quickly reference when writing your code. This has already been ran, but let me just run it again. And while it's running, these three dots, they allow you to duplicate the query. You can add it to favorites. You can move to trash, edit query info. This one just allows you to add any descriptions. You can change the title of your query. You can add tags here as well. So the share button is great because this is where you can share it with your colleagues in your organization. I don't believe that this works for external users. So if they are not on here, then they will not be able to access this. But I believe through the URL, through our web browser, it is possible. And I'd have to find out how to do that because I cannot remember. I'm gonna save this so I know it's locked in. So if I click over, if I come back down to this area where I can see my table, if I click this tab here, revenue by nation over time, you can see that this is a visualization that was created right underneath my query. And it's using the results from my query to create this. So if I click edit visualization, you can see how it was generated. It was generated using a bar chart. There are many types of visualizations that you can select here. You can select line, an area, pie, histogram, heat map, things of that nature. So there's a variety of choices here. And then, of course, it was set up, the X column, is the year, revenue. Your basic bar chart can be edited right here on Databricks SQL. It's stacked. It's just a variety of things you can do here. I'm not going to dive too deep into this because I want to make sure that we have time for more. There also is a refresh schedule for this query. So if you click refresh, you can refresh it. Well, right now it's at never, but you can refresh it however frequent you'd like, from minutes to hours, days, weeks. I'm going to keep it on never. Okay, so remember earlier when I got to the queries page, I let y'all know that there is something called tab editor. And right up here is the tab editor. This is enabled so I can quickly open an existing query, or I can quickly create one within the same on the same page. So I don't have to open any new browsers, anything like that to go between queries, which is great. So if I wanted to open another one, I could just search up some of my queries here, customer value, and it'll open up another query that I can go back and forth between if I so needed to. And I'm just going to run this. Okay. So the last key feature I wanted to talk about here for queries is past executions. And past executions kind of allow you to see, let me go to this one and show you past execution. Okay, so on this query, you can see kind of what has been going on in regard to the query. based on you running it. So if I was to click this first one here, I don't know why it's saying that. I'll click this one here. And as you can see, it's telling me that I'm viewing this in past read-only mode. And this is good just for history regarding your query. If you want to see what you've been doing, what you've been changing, you can also clone it to a new query and it'll open up a new tab. But I'm not going to do that because last time I did it, it took kind of a while and don't want to use up too much time here. And again, you can't edit it because it's in read-only mode. If you want to go back and edit it, you have to click resume editing or click current draft. Okay, so now we have learned a little bit about how to create queries, how we can create visualizations within queries. And so now we're going to talk about how to monitor SQL warehouses, query history, and query performance. So if I click the query history tab off this navigation pane, you can now see all the different things that we've done in regards to the different queries associated with me. So at the top here, it's filtered to me, but you can filter it to all users if you wanted to see what all users were doing within the platform. But we're going to stick to just me. You can change it to however many days that you want to see this. So I'm going to choose the last hour. You can cater it to all the SQL warehouses that you've created. Or you can just stick to the one that you created earlier, which is serverless starter warehouse. And then you can also filter it by status. You can check whether the query failed, started, queued, running. It's just a quick way to get what you need through these filters. So I'm going to go ahead and click into this first one. And if you hover over it just quickly, you can kind of see a bit more detail regarding the query. But I'm going to click into it. And this is where you can kind of monitor your query performance and see kind of what's going on, if there's any bottlenecks going on. Once you click into it, you can see the overview, which is this section here. Really basic, whether the status of the query, whether it finished, failed, canceled, who created it, what version it's running on, and the SQL warehouse that it's utilizing. You can also view the query duration, and this just gives you a bit more information regarding how long it took to fetch results, optimize the query, and execute the query itself. And as you can see, it's milliseconds and seconds. It gives you start time and end time. It also gives you task time results, your IO time, IO information, how many rows were read or returned, partitions that were read, and spill to disk information. So this is great just for, a quick high-level view, but you can also open it in the Spark UI if you wanted to dive a little bit deeper into your query, how it's running. You can see that there are, sorry, it's loading. Okay, so you can see the different shuffles, reads, filtering. You can see it all the way down. I believe if you click into it, you can see a bit more information regarding it. This is a bit more in depth. And you can do that just by going into the Spark UI. And sometimes here too, you can see that if you're running like a bunch of shuffles or joins, those are quite costly. And so that can encourage you to maybe rewrite your query for better performance. Okay. So now, if we go to the, not that one, SQL Warehouse, I'm going to click the warehouse that I've been using, which is the serverless starter warehouse. And in the monitoring tab, I know I touched on it in the beginning a little earlier, but a bit more detail here. So if you want to know how many queries your warehouse, or how many is running on your warehouse, you click monitoring and you can see how many for the past 6 hours. Um, it looks like it's 33. The past 24 hours, 7 days, and 14 days are the different filters. But you can also see how many clusters. So in the past 6 hours, one has been generated. So this is a great place to see uh, how many queries or clusters are running. Again, here, if you go back, this is where you can edit the actual warehouse. We've already seen this. But just know that this monitoring piece for the actual SQL warehouse, you have to click the actual warehouse to get to it so you can actually see kind of what's going on. You can also delete the entire warehouse. I don't know if I touched on that. Okay, we're almost done. The next section is how to configure alerts. And alerts are great because they allow you to define a set condition on fields by a scheduled query when it meets a certain threshold. So let's see here, it's loading. Okay, great. So as you can see, it's blank because I have no alerts, but we're gonna create one together. So you just click create alert, and you have to know that when you create an alert, you have to have obviously a query. And the query is, I'm gonna use this one again, the national revenue trends. And now you can set a condition. So you want to be alerted or triggered when something happens. So for me, I want to know, or I want to be alerted when the revenue reaches less than, let's say 10 million. So, okay. So now that I have that inputted, you can now set your the frequency of your notification. So you can have the alerts be sent once until it's back to normal. You can send it each time the alert is evaluated from triggered to okay and back. And then you can set it up as a custom at most however you want to set that up. But for this demo, I'm just going to stick to just once. You can also set up a custom template for when you get a triggered alert. So if you need to write down any details regarding it, you can. But most users, most of our customers use just a default. You get an email or however you want your alert sent. It can also be refreshed. You can refresh it on a certain frequency here as well. I'm going to keep it to an hour. And then of course, the SQL warehouse associated with the query. And this particular alert is the serverless starter warehouse that I created in the beginning. And if you're not sure, they do have setup instructions that you can click to kind of figure out how you'd like to set up your alert. But it's pretty intuitive. So yeah, let's create the alert. And as you can see, the status here is yellow and known, which just means, well, first we just started it up, so it needs some time to, gather information and the data. This will always happen when you start up an alert. It'll say unknown, but give it a few minutes, and it will change to either triggered if it meets the alert, or it will just say okay, and it'll be green. So destinations, right now, as you can see, the alert is being sent to my email. And you can actually change that by adding a certain alert destination. So if I click this, it now takes me to a new tab, and I can have these alerts sent to, obviously, my email like I showed you, but it can also be sent to a Slack channel, your own custom webhook, any of these here. And you can configure them for your alerts. Okay. Now we're on the last section, which is my favorite section, creating dashboards. And this is the coolest part about Databricks for me. So obviously we're gonna go to the last tab that we have in access, which is the dashboards tab. Very similar to the queries tab. However, it's a list of dashboards, who it's created by. I'm an admin, so I can see all the different users that have been creating dashboards, when it was created. You can filter by your dashboards, your favorites, trash. We've kind of seen that already through the queries, but we're gonna go ahead and actually create a dashboard together, just to show you a little bit about how it works, if it will load. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new dashboard, and it's gonna be called Revenue Dashboard. And you are brought to this blank page because there's nothing, there's no visualizations. So before I even do that, I'm gonna select my warehouse, which is the serverless starter, and I'm gonna start adding in some visualizations. But the first thing I wanna do is I kinda wanna create a header so I can keep kind of organized. And you can do that just by clicking, I'm sorry, I went a little fast there, but you click add, and then you can add a text box. And I'm going to add section number 8, and working with dashboards. This text box, it also supports any markdown that you'd like to put here. This just sends you to like a cheat sheet, but I'm sure most of us know markdown, and you can utilize that here as well. So I'm gonna add that to my dashboard. You can obviously move these around. You can make it smaller, bigger, however that you like. You can also delete it and remove it. That's the text box. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add a actual visualization. And I'm gonna show you 2 ways actually. I can do it here by just searching up my query. I'm gonna do customer value, since it's already there. If it loads. Okay, so I'm gonna choose my visualization. All I have is a table. I'm gonna touch on that in a moment to show you the other way to add a visualization. This is the title of it. I'm just gonna keep it that way. And then the description can just be customer value over time, or whatever that you desire to put. And then you're gonna add it to your dashboard, and it'll immediately pop up here. You can move it around, you can resize it, you can make it large, big. And that's one way to add a visualization. But underneath the actual query, if I go back to my national revenue trends, this was one of the visualizations that was created. You can actually also just add it by clicking these 3 dots here. You add it to your dashboard, and it's the revenue dashboard, I believe, that I created. That's the name of it. And you can just add it that way as well. Great. So there's something, I can obviously add more here. Oh, let me move this. Why is it letting me move it? Huh. That's strange. I'm not sure why it's not letting me move it around anymore. Or I know why. Obviously, edit. That's why. Okay, so I'm gonna move it so it just looks a bit better. Maybe under here. And maybe move this here. Actually, don't let me put that here. Oops. Uh-oh. Let me. Sorry, something weird is happening. Okay. See if I can re-add it. Okay, there we go. So organizing and arranging your dashboard is customizable. I'm just gonna keep it like this, but I don't know if you saw, I pressed, I'm gonna click done editing so I don't mess with anything else. But I pressed refresh because I actually noticed that these two visualizations, one of them was saying, I think like an hour or two ago, and then the other one was saying like maybe 4 days ago. Um, and if I want to keep up-to-date visualizations and I want to make sure that I'm looking at accurate information, you definitely want to hit refresh manually, but you can also set up a refresh schedule with this button here. And you can select the interval again. Maybe it's every minute you want it to be refreshed, every 12 hours, depending on kind of what you need every week. And truthfully, so when you want to share the dashboard with users, of course you can do it through here that we showed earlier, permission, so they can view it and see it and stuff like that. But there's also subscribers here. I'm actually not sure why it's hollowed out or grayed out, but you can add people's email here so they can also get notified when this dashboard is updated, which is great. And they don't have to have access to Databricks, from what I know. And I think that's pretty much it for this. Let me make sure. Yes, that's it for this demo. And so I appreciate y'all being here. I want to go ahead and share one more thing. Give me a second. And actually, yeah, I'm going to have my moderator help with questions. But before I do, I just kind of wanted to share some next steps. So if you wanted to get started on Databricks SQL, please go ahead and head over to this link. If you would like to get this slideshow, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to keep learning about Databricks SQL and just Databricks in general, there is some self-paced training that is free for customers.
Can we also use it as part of our DB utils that like we have on notebooks from Databricks side? So like if I want to create,
Can't hear. I'm sorry, I cannot hear you at all.
if I want to create DB utils here in the same page, is it allowed as we do in Python notebooks in the same Databricks environment?
I'm not sure I'm following. Would you mind answering if you can hear him? I'm not sure. Something about DB.
Yeah, so the question is, can we use DB utils and or parameterize some of the SQL commands that, yeah, you can definitely parameterize some of the SQL commands. If you are planning on orchestrating it via workflows, etc., there is options to parameterize the SQL commands as well. But I'm not sure about the DB utils part. We can talk later. Sure.
Also, by the way, there are several questions here. And so I did want to also mention that there's also a reason behind why I did this, because I am new to Databricks, as you know, so I'm obviously always still learning as well. And so I was going to put together a blog post to kind of answer these questions. So I can learn, I can do the research and also get them answered for y'all. So if you do want to see this particular blog post, definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I'm aiming to actually answer all of them and post it sometime next week. So, oh, my contact information, of course.
So you showed how you can connect Databricks queries to like a Databricks dashboard, and you also showed how you can connect Databricks to Tableau and Power BI and the partner. Can those partnered BI tools connect directly to a Databricks query, Or do we still have to kind of rewrite the whole query and embed it in the partner BI tool?
That's a good question. I'm actually not entirely sure. And Kata, would you mind answering?
Yeah. So there are two ways you can use the SQL endpoint, obviously, and you can spin up a Spark cluster, and in the advanced options, you will see the JDBC details that you can copy and take to your BI tool of choice to connect to the Spark cluster directly. But the recommendation would be to connect to the SQL endpoint because you get the advantage of scaling vertically as well. Even the number of concurrent connections is very flexible with this option. No, it's the same. The SQL endpoint with the SQL endpoint, the compute will be in your environment. With the serverless side, Databricks will be spinning up the compute for you, and you will be able to get the endpoint details from the by clicking through the UI option. Yep.
Quick question. In the use cases that you have shown so far, mostly they were focused on single data warehouse. If I were to join two data warehouses to come up with a query result, is that a possibility, or should I have to have all my tables and information in a single data warehouse?
So you're asking if you can join them?
Join data from two different data warehouses.
Oh, sorry. Would you mind answering? I'm not
I
sure.
think in the demo she was referring to connecting to your storage. I think in this scenario it was ADLS storage. So if you prefer to bring in some extra data from one of your SQL warehouses, then you can rely on the JDBC connections to bring in the data and join it over a data.
Sorry. Now we have multiple data warehouses listed in the drop down, right? Now, would I be able to join two different data warehouses from the drop down so that I can make more sense of the data from, let's say I have financial data warehouse and medical data warehouse. I want to just map both of them.
Sure. So the data warehouses that you are seeing here, they are logically Spark clusters underneath. So if you want to bring in, if you want to connect to different data sources, so data warehouses is in the presentation that she has shown. When you're looking at the data warehouse endpoint, you're looking at a SQL endpoint. So similarly, you can create a new endpoint which has access to both the data sources that you're looking at, and probably the same endpoint can pull in both the data that you want to connect to. Yeah.
Do you have the concept of workspaces in the SQL persona, like the how we have on the data science and engineering side and ML side, so that we can group the queries into like for a
Sorry.
certain set of people instead of at a query level?
What was the question? I can't
Oh.
really hear. Something about the different.
Yeah. So can you group the queries into a logical collection at a user level, at a workspace level?
Within the data science.
In the SQL persona, like how we have in the data science and engineering, we have something called as workspaces where you could create multiple notebooks.
Yeah. 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 So workspace is your Databricks deployment, right? So under the workspaces, you will see SQL persona, you will see machine learning, and you will see data engineering personas. So within the SQL persona, you will be able to create multiple queries. And if you want to restrict the query visibility to a group of users, you can do that. Or it will be available for every user by default to look at the query. I mean, if you're an admin, you can go and see all the queries that the user has typed. Did that answer your question? Yeah, so all users by default will have access to Databricks SQL, but an admin can restrict which personas a specific individual can see if he wants to. Yeah.
Can we schedule these queries?
Yes. Yes, I think it's demoed as.
Schedule them like every day, like run it on a schedule.
Yes, you can. You can schedule the queries, and you can parameterize the queries as well. Yeah, you can schedule from workflows, or you can create a schedule from the SQL UI itself, you can schedule for the dashboards to be refreshed as well, which are running these SQL queries in the backend.
I think we're at time. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you so much, Venkata. I appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of your day and have a safe trip back home.